So we're going to look at the simple interest formula and different questions they might ask you to calculate with this formula. So this is one of the equations they may give you. These equations, the 1, 2, and 3, are all equivalent here. We've just used different letters to define them. We have to note that the capital case I here is actually equal to PRT, but what is A? What is P? What is I? What is R? What is T? What are all these things? So we have to define them all on this side. So your T, letter T stands for time, so that's the amount of time that's passed in this bank account, this simple interest bank account. P is the principal or the present value of money, whatever you've put in originally. Capital case I stands for interest earned, okay? But it's not an actual amount, it's something that you're going to calculate, okay? Lowercase r is the interest rate, so we've checked that off. And finally, A is the amount, that's why they call it A, but really what that means is the future value of that interest. So whatever you put your principal in, after it's earned a certain amount, that's what we're calculating, that A. So I know this part isn't very organized here, but we'll try to draw similarities between these. So if you take a look at these formulas, I'm going to tell you how you go from one to the other to the other. To be all honest, 3 is really the best one to know. It makes calculating other letters and stuff far simpler. This is the one they usually give you, but it's not complete. They give you the amount is equal to the principal or present value plus interest earned. Well, to calculate interest earned, you have to do a whole other formula outside of it. So what that would mean is you'd have to do this. Say you got $10. Then you'd have to substitute the $10 into this equation. Oops. And then you'd have to plug this in. So you're actually working with essentially 2 equations in this case, which is more than we need to work with. Why not just work with 1 equation? So that's why we give us version 2. Version 2, I've replaced I with PRT. So it's no longer there. This used to be I. We've just replaced it with that other formula. Okay? So that way we're working with just that 1 equation. We still got to put in the P twice, and then P times R times T. That's your essentially interest earned plus the original principal. Version 3 is actually just a factored form of version 2. And the reason I factor it is that way you only have 1 P to deal with. Okay, so what we did is we common factored out the P, we took it to the outside of the brackets, and you're left with A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. This one's going to be easiest to work with if they ever ask you for what P is or what R is or what T is. This will be the easiest. It's very easy to use any of these to calculate A, but once you start going into these letters here, P, R, and T, even just P itself, this formula is far easiest to work with, so it's best to just really memorize this one. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the questions they get asked. For 50 is deposited for 4 years and earned 6.5 per year. Okay, so we have to define what's what. Our principal, or our present value, is our 450. Our time is 4 years. Okay, now technically, time can vary. Time is dependent on the interest rate. So actually look at the interest rate first. It's 6.5% per year. If it was per month, let's just for argument's sake say it was per month, time would no longer be 4 years, but it would be 4 times 12. It'd be 48 months. Okay, so it'd be very different, and that's where they can play with you in these questions. Because it's per year, then T is 4. But if it was calculated per month and they said it's 4 years, well, T would actually be 48 because we calculate things in terms of the interest rate. Okay, so I'm going to take away this months now. I don't need it. So year is what's important there. Great, so that gives us a lot of information. I'm going to use the third formula here to calculate. So A is unknown. Okay. The P value we said is 450. Bracket 1. Okay, so bracket 1 plus the interest rate we said was 6.5. Is it blue interest rate? Yeah, it was. You technically got to take this 6.5 and divide it by 100 to make it a decimal, so it's 0.065. Okay, so your R is 0.065.
So always make it a decimal.
Yeah, always make it a decimal value. And then your T here, well, T, like we said, is 4 years. So there's your T value. And now we just kind of go through the motion. So 4 times this, you're going to use a little calculator. Do I got one here? Yeah, we do. Does this one work? Nope. I got to do a bunch of signing in. I had to restart some stuff. Let's use this one for now. 4 times 0.065 equals, okay. And then I got to add 1, so plus 1. And then I'm going to multiply this by 450. So our new amount is $565. So $67. So I kind of did that all in one step, but it's essentially just algebra. Follow the inside of the brackets, do multiplication first, then add, then the 450 and then after that. Let's use the same information. They could have also potentially said, you will have 565 in the future. What did you start with? So in that case, that would be like, well, my P is unknown. So if they did that, what we would do is replace A with 567. P would be the unknown, okay? We still have the same interest rate, let's say, so 0.065, and it's still over the course of 4 years, okay? So this is a little more complex. We got to isolate for the letter P. So what we can do here is we can calculate what this bracket's going to equal. And we already know from before, 0.065 times 4.
1.26.
Yeah, exactly. We add 1, so it's 1.26. So we get 1.26, and this is 567. So to isolate for P, that set of brackets is a little too large. 567 divide 1.26 equals P. So our new P is going to be, and it should be 100 or 450. 567 divided by 1.26. 450. Great. Let's say they've done something else where they've told you that your A is going to be 567, your P is 450. So they've told you you are going to end up with $567. You start with 450. Your interest rate, so they tell you the R is 0.065. How much time does it take to earn this amount of money? Again, this is where that third formula comes in. So we do 567 equals 450. 1 plus 0.065 times t. So we have to isolate for t here, which becomes a little more difficult. So the first thing you want to do is you want to move this 450 over. In order to do that, you're going to divide by 450. You're essentially dividing both sides by 450, okay? So when we do that, we get 567 divide 450. 1.1, oh, good to know. 1.26 is equal to, and this is now 1 plus 0.065 t, let's say. We've actually put it together, it's a coefficient. I then bring the 1 over, so it's 1.26 subtract 1 is equal to 0.065 t. That's going to become 0.26. So 0.26 is equal to 0.065 t. And we still got to isolate for t, so we're going to divide. We're going to bring over this 0.065, and in order to do that, we divide by it. And we should end up with 4, assuming everything's done correctly. Where's my calculator? There we go. So 0.26 divided by 0.065, 4. Perfect. That's the exact amount of time that we said we should have, right, from the above. And then finally, the last thing would be to calculate the interest rate, which is identical process to calculating time. It's just in a little bit of a different spot, that's all. So it's the exact same process as this. You're just isolating R instead of isolating T. But that's essentially any possible question they'll ask you. The only other thing they might ask you is how much interest you earned, and you just subtract these two values, right? If you end up with 565 in the end, and you start with 450, you do 567. I keep saying that number wrong. Subtract 450, and we'll get 711, $117. And that's actually the easiest thing they'd probably ask you to do if they want to say, how much money have you earned in this account over the 4 years? Okay, but that's every possible question they would really ask you for simple interest.